In early February 1968, just days before heading to India, the Beatles entered the studio to film a promotional clip for their single, Lady Madonna. During this session, John, with a bit of help from Paul, introduced a new song he had recently penned, which would later be titled Hey Bulldog. The group decided to use this studio time to record the new track, with the camera crew capturing the entire process. By mid-1967, the band had completed 4 new tracks intended for the Yellow Submarine soundtrack, believing they had fulfilled their obligations. However, the first track they recorded for the film, Baby You're a Rich Man, had already been released as a B-side, prompting them to quickly produce another one. They had started working on You Know My Name, Look Up the Number for the film, but it was ultimately deemed unsuitable. So I knocked off Hey Bulldog, John said in 1980, adding,
Hey Bulldog.
That's me, because the Yellow Submarine people, who are gross animals, apart from the guy who drew the painting, the actual Yellow Submarine, came and, apart from sort of lifting all the ideas for the movie out of our heads and not giving us any credit, like Eric Siegel writing at Lennon-esque lines straight from in his own right style, and the crew, we had nothing to do with that movie, and we sort of resented them. And we didn't know what it was. It was the third movie that we owed these United Artists, and Brian had set it up, and we had nothing to do with it. We knew nothing about it. But I liked the movie. I liked Heinz's artwork. Yeah. But they got all the ideas for the glove in the sky, and the thing that sucks people up was my idea. They said, "Have you got any monsters?" I said, "Yeah, there's Horace the vacuum cleaner in the swimming pool," which was a thing you could buy, and it went around the pool sucking up the things, and I said, that could be a monster that sucks, things like that. They just took them and never credited. If they wanted another song, I knocked off Hey Bulldog. Yeah. It's a good sounding record that means nothing. Nice lick on the piano and all that.
Paul said we should do a real song in the studio. Could I whip one off? I had a few words at home, so I brought them in. The few words he had were recently laid down in his home recording studio as a rough demo. This recording featured him playing both piano and organ, with layered vocals, all centered around the ascending piano motif that later became the highlight of the song's chorus. At one point, Paul was helping John with the lyrics, Jeff Emerick recalls, but most of the songs seem to have been written and worked out before they got to the studio. It's mainly John's vibe, Paul added. John had written a line, "Some kind of solitude is measured out in news," but it was misread as "some kind of solitude is measured out in you." Despite the mistake, they decided to stick with the new version. The recording was completed so quickly that the song's title wasn't even decided until the day they finished it. They aimed to record the entire track in one day, just as they had done with previous songs for the movie. With their departure for India only days away, they knew the song had to be fully wrapped up by the end of the session. Interestingly, this session marked the first time John's friend, Yoko Ono, attended a Beatles recording. As John and Yoko later confirmed in their December 1970 Rolling Stone interview with Jan Wenner, Yoko's presence became a regular occurrence at recording sessions from that day onward. Jeff Emerick remembers, "The vibe that day was great. All 4 Beatles were in an exceptionally good mood because they knew they would be heading to India in a matter of days. Everyone's performance was excellent on that track. Paul's bass line was probably the most inventive of any he'd done since Pepper, and it was really well played. Harrison's solo was sparkling too, one of the few times that he nailed it right away. His amp was turned up really loud, and he used one of his new fuzz boxes, which made his guitar absolutely scream. Since we can watch both the promo film for Lady Madonna, which was shot on this day, and the later assembled video of Hey Bulldog, this track is one of the most well-documented in terms of their recording process, aside from the Get Back documentary, of course. Emerick mentions that the song turned out so well that John pushed for it to be the A-side of the single instead of Lady Madonna. Unsurprisingly, Paul wasn't too pleased with the idea, but the conversation was cut short by George Martin, who firmly stated that it was too late to make any changes since the record sleeves had already been printed. Paul explains, "There's a little rap at the end between John and me. We went into a crazy little thing at the end. We always tried to make every song different because we figured, why write something like that last one? We've done it. We were always on a staircase to heaven. We were on a ladder, so there was never any sense of stepping down a rung or even of staying on the same rung. It was better to move one rung ahead. We liked to be inventive. It seemed to us to be crucial to never do the same thing twice. In fact, as they say now, they never did the same thing once. What started as a simple, almost throwaway track to meet a contractual obligation has since become a well-regarded classic in the Beatles' catalog.
I think one of the things I like about John's songwriting style is its quirkiness. It comes from a point of view that when you get to know him and you get to know his life story, there was a lot of angst and a lot of pain in there, you know, because the way he was brought up. And so it comes out in a form of poetry that I like a lot. You know, it's quite surreal, some of his lyrics. And I think Hey Bulldog is very surreal. And so we were recording Hey Bulldog, so they happened to take a lot of footage, live, sync stuff of us recording, which is very good. And it only just showed up. I think we'd all forgotten most things anyway. But we'd forgotten that in particular. And so it suddenly showed up. So I think it makes a really cool little video. It's very of the time. And what I like is normally when you take footage from the time, you've got to just try and match it, and you catch somebody doing yes, and so you sync that up. But here you've got whole live takes, you know. So I think it's really cool. And obviously I like the moment when we're in there and I'm harmonizing with him, and he says something about a dog or something, and I start going, oh, and I start being a dog, you know, and then he sort of says, you got any more? I'm like, whoa, and I'm off on that. The spirit of that session is brought back by the recording, you know. It's a very free and open spirit that I like a lot, and it's very artistic. So I think it's a really cool riff. I remember making up that riff. Dun, 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 dun. I think the lyrics are great. I think John sings it good, and I think I harmonise well. And I think my dog impression is terrific.